In the 19th century, classical economists operated on a strict assumption that price was the sole mathematical driver of human demand. This chart visualizes the traditional model: quantity on the x-axis, price on the y-axis, creating an inverse relationship. As price drops, quantity increases. But real-world data produced anomalies. Often, increasing an item's price generated higher market demand. The rigid curve couldn't account for reality. These deviations represented variables classical equations could not calculate. People were buying based on prestige, convenience, and location, variables that existed entirely outside of base pricing. Because classical economics failed to map these behaviors, an intellectual void opened. A new science was required to explain the mechanics of human market behavior. In the early 1900s, a group of institutional economists set out to solve this theoretical failure by moving past abstract curves and looking at actual trade. They analyzed catalysts like mail-order catalogs, proving that retail distribution networks altered consumer demand by offering access and information separate from the item's cost. They studied physical environments, observing how early department stores used layout and atmosphere to drive purchases, regardless of an item's base utility. To calculate these hidden variables, these economists invented an academic discipline designed to engineer demand: marketing. Over the following century, this discipline evolved from a niche study of distribution into the operational core of the entire firm. In this framework, marketing dictates the mathematical architecture of the firm. It determines the hard limits of sustainable growth by calculating the cost of every new customer against the actual profit they generate. The survival of digital and physical businesses today relies on a specific application of this mathematics. This equation represents the foundational metric of enterprise scale, the ratio of lifetime value to customer acquisition cost. Lifetime value, or LTV, is the lifetime gross profit, revenue minus cost of goods, isolating the money a single customer contributes. Customer acquisition cost, or CAC, aggregates the all-in expense required to capture that user, including sales commissions, media spend, and the software required to manage the funnel. To remain solvent, the acquisition cost must leave enough gross profit to cover the company's fixed overhead and labor. Targeting a 3-to-1 ratio ensures that for every dollar spent on media, $2 remain to fund operations and sustain the infrastructure of the business. A firm's ceiling for scale is dictated by its mastery of this single economic unit. Paid advertising is a zero-sum auction for human attention. Firms bid against each other for the exact same digital space. The winner of this auction is rarely the firm with the best product. Success goes to the firm that can afford to spend the most to acquire a single customer. When a company engineers an extraordinarily high LTV on the back end, they secure disproportionate bidding power in this front-end auction. This creates a state of ethical monopoly. A business can legally outbid every competitor in the market for ad space while still remaining highly profitable. Superior back-end unit economics turn advertising into an offensive tool. When a firm knows its profit per user is higher than the competition's, it can aggressively outbid them, effectively purchasing market share through capital efficiency. Executing this strategy requires navigating an operational paradox. Businesses are built back to front, but marketed front to back. This timeline illustrates the back-to-front construction. We engineer product delivery to maximize LTV and ensure fast day 30 cash recovery, providing capital for initial media spend. If you scale front-end marketing before this back-end is secure, acquisition costs will crush margins, mathematically bankrupting the company. Once the back-end LTV is secured, the operation shifts to the front-to-back phase, optimizing the top of the funnel to maximize volume throughput. Because human attention degrades quickly, up to 80% of advertising returns rely entirely on the efficiency of the first 5 seconds of a message. A high-converting front-end message is useless without a back-end system built to monetize that flow efficiently. When a company hits a revenue plateau, operators typically assume they need to add new products or enter new markets. Private equity firms utilize a specific data room methodology to prove the opposite, analyzing a company's customer list to uncover structural inefficiencies. This chart illustrates the 80-20 data anomaly. When ordering customers by lifetime value, a hyper-specific 20. Discovering these profitable unit economics in the open market requires brutal operational execution. The core operational principle for this execution is that volume negates luck. Most firms stall because their creative output is too low to accurately map the demand of their target market. While amateur firms produce a handful of tests, nine-figure operations generate relentless, systemic creative output. Extreme volume allows a firm to methodically traverse the 5 levels of consumer awareness, reaching past warm leads and penetrating the lucrative, unaware outer market. Calculating the perfect ratio of lifetime value to acquisition cost is a mathematical inevitability achieved through massive iterative volume. This maps the demand engine as a feedback loop: narrow the avatar to increase LTV, absorb a higher CAC, and pump volume back in. The active loop drives expansion, consuming market share until it hits a structural bottleneck, like delivery capacity or diminishing returns. The role of the modern executive is to identify that specific constraint, isolate it, relieve it, and immediately resume pumping volume. Growth is never the direct goal. It is merely the mathematical byproduct of systematically removing constraints from an optimized engine. Marketing has shed its origins as a soft discipline of persuasion. It has now evolved into the hard science of engineering unit economics to dictate